I'm Jay. I'm based out of Berlin, Germany. I'm working on the Adobe XD team, but I did not start it. That's been my friend Tom Kacha. Besides that day job at Adobe, I'm pushing two non-for-profits forward. And one is OpenDeviceLab.com, which helps to spawn and to locate places where designers and developers can test their work across a variety of real devices for free. And the other one is the Berlin chapter of the Interaction Designers Association, where we are fostering knowledge exchange between experts and novices across our community. In my free time, I enjoy building furniture for our house and our garden. And last January, our third kid was born. And while juggling around the stuff our house to make room for our baby boy, my partner had the idea of getting a bunk bed for our two elder daughters. We sat down to define the functionality that piece of furniture should cover, which turned out to be a two guardrailed bed for the girls, including a ladder, a guest bed, huge drawers for toys, a bookcase, and a pull-out table for our puzzle queens. Because why did that idiot ask for their wishes in the first place? We took a look at available out-of-the-box solutions, which really didn't meet our requirements at all. We took a look at what others built in terms of custom kids' beds, which helped in terms of inspiration and to do the necessary user research with our daughters, and also to clearly identify what we're not going to do. Take a look at this design. It says, here's the design for kids, a bunk bed based on the Velociraptor cage from the first Jurassic Park film. The box shape and leather make for a perfect bunk bed. I'm really not that sure, Dave. But anyway, working in high tech is great, but those digital things I do, well, that's all pretty virtual stuff, right? My work doesn't bring up things that I could touch with my hands, or make my small kids understand, like, hey, look, that's what your dad has built. So that is among the reasons why I love to find some balance in working with wood. Ideate, plan, go out, select raw materials at the wood shop, turn a selection of 1.5 tons of this, into something like this, just to end up with something as simple, solid, and durable like this. And before attempting to create that bunk bed, I had built less complex pieces of furniture. Here's another example that's been made out of the same pile of raw wood and went from here to there to a unique and tailor-made solution for a master bathroom. But before you can build this, you need a design and detailed specs. And in the past, I used to sketch my plans with pen and paper. More complicated parts of a project needed several drawings. That's where I typically took my pen and paper work to OmniGraffle to draw the project from multiple angles. And anyhow, before you begin to even format the board or go and buy materials, you have to create a part list, which I did in Excel. But all those documents were never connected to each other. And while designing the project, whenever I realized a more fundamental change was needed, I had to examine everything, and too often to draw all those plans again. While I fleshed out the raw idea for that bunk bed using pen and paper, it dawned to me that my old patchwork of tools would not cut it for this thing. Also, this bunk bed, drawer, bookcase, guest bed, puzzle table, ladder thing was far too complex to be based off a multitude of 2D drawings. But I had become so familiar with my cumbersome workflow. And yes, I did try to switch to CAD, to 3D-aided design tools before, but I really never figured out how that works. Up until that day when I found a YouTube video of a carpenter explaining SketchUp through the eyes and hands of a carpenter. With that narrative, I immediately understood how to use that tool for my woodworking needs and began designing the bunk bed in 3D. It took me a week, and I had managed to design everything in one tool, in one file, without the added friction and error potential of a multitude of disconnected documents. I was able to prototype and show the intended outcome to validate my ideas with my partner in that one tool. And then I could even take my 3D design to the workshop, pull out the specs to transform it into the 197 unique parts I needed to build the bunk bed. Did you guys ever get to read that hilarious article by Keaton Herzer? Anybody? Keaton summarizes the ideal design workflow for us. In Keaton's article, your workflow begins with pen and paper. You take pictures of your sketches and make them clickable using POP. But hey, wireframes are needed, so OmniGraffle. But dang, a drop-down menu is required, so where are you, Balsamiq? Let's rebuild all those wireframes with you. You realize you dislike Balsamiq, so you reattempt the same task using Extrude. You realize you also dislike Extrude, so why not jump to Illustrator and the wireframing kit for $89? You export your wireframes as a PNG and share them via InVision with your team, only to wake up the next morning and to cry into your breakfast bowl because of all the mean comments that Jonathan left on your InVision prototype. At some point, the wireframes are signed off, so off to Sketch to work on the visual design. Now export your hi-fi design as a PNG and import it into Flinto. Your stakeholder doesn't want to install the Flinto app, so off to Principal to make those screens interactive. Well, and Keaton goes on for a while, and while this article is fun, and it will make you laugh out loud, the ugly reality it really is all about is that rather inefficient, cumbersome, error-prone workflow involving a patchwork of software tools that are creating a multitude of disconnected files, which are probably all named something like V8 final.3 dash really final underscore master dash 2. Well, what could we do to change that? At Adobe, we have many great tools. Some are around since more than a quarter of a century. Tools that can and are being used to accomplish things they've never been designed for in the first place. So at Adobe, about 2 years ago, a team came together to design a design tool for designers. We looked at our favorite pieces of flagship apps and decided to start from scratch. We wanted to completely reimagine a design tool from today's 2017's perspective, build something modern and future-proof. And what we built from ground up is now called Adobe Experience Design, or short Adobe XD. And with XD, we aim to enable you to design at the speed of thought. Good defaults encourage good design. So on day 0, a number of principles have been defined for XD that are core to the product and drive decision-making. First, XD is lightweight and approachable, but powerful and not limiting. Second, zero friction. Performance and UI should feel invisible to the user. XD is direct and real-time, accurate and instant. We're not beholden to any traditional Adobe UIs. We took what's appropriate and just left the rest. And third, XD is transparent and open. The community is involved, and we're open and responsive to feedback. We update our users on feature and bug process, and our roadmap is publicly available. XD is fast and fluid while we're navigating around this set of artboards. Drawing is simple, precise, and vector-based, but pixel accurate. Changing the design, as in this repeat grid, or adjusting those stars with just another repeat grid. Let's add my smartphone to the view here, where any edits made to the design are reflected in real time on the device. Let me go to prototyping mode here and wire up the home to the list to the detailed screen, and we can instantly test our work to check how it feels on the actual device. XD allows you to do all the work, from wireframing or lo-fi design over to hi-fi design, right into prototyping and up to sharing your work with your stakeholders to get their feedback, all the way down to developer handoff. The short-term vision is to enable you to create all your specs and assets from within XD up to handoff in that one single XD file. And another thing we announced last year to be added soon is visual versioning integrated to XD, as well as the upcoming collaboration features we're currently working on. Just imagine to design at the speed of thought, but together in real time, just like you'd be collaborating on a Google Doc or an Office 365 document. Fast Company has had a lot positive things to say about XD. And my favorite quote from Fast Company actually is about the completely new product design process we are employing and the thousands of independent designers who are looped in to test builds and provide feedback to our pre-release programs. Fast Company called that a uniquely nimble and transparent approach from an industry behemoth. And they're right. And the core of my talk today is to share some specifics on that approach with you and explain where it has so fundamentally changed the way product is being designed and developed at Adobe. So XD currently is available as a so-called beta version. And we all would probably associate beta with not there yet, right? Let me explain why this assumption does not match XD and how we managed to redefine beta, to be able to show our vision to the public, to be able to learn and to iterate. So we all know this kind of beta software that has a lot of features, but lacks in terms of deep implementation, stability, quality, performance, or all of that. In software development, we have three key parameters coming into play. Quality, time, as in time to release, and scope, which translates to feature set. So on the XD team, we're using this own version of the magic triangle of project management, and we call it the iron triangle. The logic it is impossible to constrain more than two of the three parameters. Constrain scope and quality, and time and quality will suffer. Constrain quality and scope, and you won't make the release date. And very often, the wish for the largest possible feature set built with limited time and resources would result in bad quality and bad user experience. This is why a typical beta release is all about. The first beta has all the features, but it doesn't have a deep feature implementation because it requires time to flesh out all the very details. Then subsequent updates are being released aiming to add the missing details and catch up in terms of quality. This catch-up, ladies and gentlemen, fails very often due to a specific reason. There is no solid foundation, no solid and well-engineered technical foundation, because how do you know what to prepare for when you have not taken the time to think through everything to the very detail? And no solid and well-designed user experience because same reasons. So as opposed to churning out a fully fledged storefront, which would base on our own assumptions, we made the decision to start our beta releases with a very minimal feature set that shows depth and is well thought through to all those relevant details we wanted to validate, that shows a solid design and implementation, and that matches the quality standards we set for XD. And then, when we have heard back and can measure ourselves and build on top of learnings, then we would go ahead and add functionality and detail, prioritizing by what is important to our users, to you, one step, one solid step at a time. So with that beta 1 in March last year, we have delivered our vision of the product, but at the performance and user experience of a full release, just with less features. And since that very first release, 12 months have passed, where we've iterated pretty quickly by releasing an updated quality beta with improvements and added features every single month, which, yes, is actually a quite dense release cadence. So what we believe is that this approach is allowing our users, you, to influence and to shape the product with while actually having a great experience. And we believe our decision to not trust our own assumptions, to leave out even the most obvious functionality, and to define those details first, together, is really key in building an awesome XD. And while we just released the 11th beta for XD for macOS and have the 3rd generation for iOS and Android in stores that know no beta, we're working at full steam on XD for Windows 10. And even though XD is still named beta, we are absolutely convinced it is already production ready. And thousands of designers worldwide agree and are actually using XD in production, so don't fear the beta. You'll miss some functionality while we are busy adding that in, but hey, that's what you miss with every other of your current tools as well, working around by patchworking things together. So I told you how we redefined beta, but how did we manage to decide what to actually implement for beta 1? What could be done to identify the true needs of our users better and more precise and on a continuous basis? How could we ensure not to base our decisions on individual opinions? Well, we started off with the same method we're now using on an ongoing basis, and that is user research. This is where we empathize, define, make something, show it, learn, and keep improving. And active user research happens in form of workshops at customers or at community meetings. Typically, we do focus groups in a ratio of 1 interviewer to a maximum of 12 attendees of around 2 hours. And normally, I would start with an introduction round where attendees explain their current workflows and challenges. And typically, this organically leads into very interesting discussions among attendees without me having asked a single question. It's a bit like an unmoderated interview, and it almost always leads into recording individual feature requests and discussing the relevance and vision for those with the group. It's quite fun to endlessly ask open-ended questions and see how people are challenging each other then with their ideas. And based on our current research and most pressing questions, I typically have a set of things I want attendees to reflect on. So there's a moderated component as well. To illustrate what we are talking about, I would show a quick demo, sometimes a prototype or only a concept. And quite stunning to ourselves, we found that actual printouts work best for A/B type questions. People can just point on what they like most. It's as easy as that. And one thing we nearly almost use to help us prioritize what to do next is the $100 test. I like to do that based on a printed paper as well, since I just can collect the papers later on. So on the paper is an unordered list of features or improvements to XD, and participants are being asked to spend virtual money on those items that are most important to them. They have to spend distinct and totally weird dollar notes. One is $40 on one thing, $25 on another, 20, 10, and 5 each on other features. And as a result, we get a prioritized list of the 5 most pressing issues for that individual. And when I'm interviewing a customer or a team of people that is working together, I also ask them to agree on their spendings on the $100 test as a team, which holds for more interesting insights and unmoderated discussion. I then transcript all of that, and later that goes into a research report and into our idea tracking system. And research reports are being tied back into feature planning, where we pull out the recorded ideas, and the process begins again. By taking some additional demographic data and by recording the experience level attendees have with XD, also by asking about team size and potential reach for XD inside their organization, when these things have not happened to be mentioned organically up front, I can then map the recorded insights quantitatively. And this allows us to weigh in future work against revenue impact, which obviously is one aspect in decision making. Prioritized user requests and feature ideas, but also those from our own backlog, would then be designed internally, discussed with a selected group of users, or implemented as prototype and being discussed in our private pre-release program. First, before we go into production. And the next step is to implement any validated features into the public beta and ask for feedback from the public. And the inception part is we are actually using XD to prototype XD, which can be a bit confusing. Imagine being a designer, designing a design tool. Inside the design tool, you are designing for designers. Anyway, the whole team is working on taking and qualifying user feedback, and this is something we're taking from social media, comments to our blog posts, or straightforward via email, but primarily via user voice. And here's a screenshot from early October showing our user voice instance. 605 unique feature requests that came in those 8 months between beta 1 and October. Feature requests are being upvoted by the community, which influences directly which features will be addressed by us next. And as a team, we're then asking questions to those users, refine those ideas, discuss details, and provide a status, completely transparent and in a dialogue with everybody. Layers are such an example. In the team, we said that XD needs no layers panel. Our collective standpoint has been that you simply should not need such a complex abstraction layer to design with XD. Just think of layers in Photoshop or in Illustrator and how they add friction and complexity sometimes. I mean, take this one, for instance. I mean, are you kidding me? Such an overhead should not be required to even create the most complex stuff within XD. And many pretty complex prototypes built by the community prove that to us, sort of. I've seen the visualization of an ATM with way more than 450 artboards without layers being available in XD. Well, but the people really wanted their layers back. Look at that thing. 812 upvotes and 65 comments to it. That's a pretty darn clear feature request. So how people envisioned layers inside XD in detail, well, that comes through pretty clearly with the stream of comments to that feature request where users are iterating on each other's ideas, challenge each other's concepts in such a constructive and professional way, it's totally unbelievable. To wrap up the story, well, we just shipped layers with XD some months ago. And by default, the layers panel is hidden, so it won't get in your way. If you want layers, if you really want them, just bring up the panel. And it is context sensitive, only showing the elements involved to your current work focus. And it's coming in the way the users wanted it, not in the way Adobe thought how layers should behave. And it came to XD because the users wanted it. And because we have left our own assumptions at the door. To wrap it up, with this new approach in product development, we've unlocked two major things. First, rapid validation and iteration. While we do have our own opinion, apparently, assumptions are prohibited. By leveraging user research, we're getting great feedback and are able to fail early. And second, user engagement. With every pre-release and public beta, users are telling us their most pressing issues. And we are prioritizing it accordingly and deliver a constant and relevant value add to the product. And that's it so far. We'd love to hear back from you as well, how the improved XD is feeling to you these days. It's a free download. Now, not all of us in the room are working on products that can unlock such a large user base for research. But don't worry so much about the numbers. What is important is that you're getting out of your building to your users. Make this a standard behavior and encourage your team to do so as well. Plan for that and block time for that. Maybe you need a little bit of budget as an incentive for attendees. But build your base of power users and make sure to frequently check in with them on your latest plans and concepts. Just do it. Don't assume what your users want from you. Ask them. So, what about that bunk bed? Here's the production-ready beta I rolled out to my daughters after 3 weeks of building. Thank you. Wow. I'm not taking orders for that, by the way. After 3 weeks of building and pre-assembling parts. But, well, the kids can't sleep on the floor just because it takes Dad more than one day to put the whole thing into place, right? So for the first night, when they took the product for a spin, as you can see, still some planned features were missing. But the majority of it is actually both solid and real. I've then added the less critical functionality over the next days. And that's the final thing delivered, including that nasty pull-out puzzle table. And my kids loved it. And who knows, maybe they're going to become great designers later in their life and will join a worldwide community of Adobe XD users just to find XD still living and breathing the same lean principles we're measuring it against today. I'd love that. Have a nice remaining conference. Thanks.